All right, everybody. Welcome back to Aaron Show, the podcast for blind people, where we talk about issues in the blindness community. We want to give a really warm welcome today to a new guest named Melvin. Melvin, you were telling me a couple. You want to talk about traveling as a blind person and working as a travel agent. Aaron, go right ahead. How are you?
Sure. Thank you so much. Yeah, my name is Melvin.
Hello.
I live in Southwest Michigan. And I
Okay.
currently work.
Hello.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, try to start over. The connection broke up there. Please start
Okay.
over.
Sure. My name is Melvin. I live in Southwest Michigan. I do work as a travel agent, and I have traveled extensively throughout the U.S. As well as the Caribbean. Um, Love traveling. I have traveled to 36 states so far. Most of those have been with a guide dog at one point or another.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, the only state that I've been to that after I got a guide dog that I didn't take him to was Hawaii. But other than that, pretty much all the other states I've been to with a dog. Um, I've been on 4 cruises so far. Have one more planned for next year. I've been to Alaska, the Southern Caribbean twice, and the Western Caribbean. And next year, I am doing 10 days partial transit of the Panama Canal. So I enjoy cruising a lot. Um, and I have, quite a bit of experience traveling, like I said. I've come up with some tips as far as traveling as a visually impaired person. I do travel with a sighted partner, and so that does help. Um, but I've often found that allowing extra time, getting through the airport, that kind of stuff helps. TSA is pretty good about, doing pat downs, that kind of thing, if you need them, especially for the dog. But traveling, staying in a group, don't roam off by yourself when you travel, that kind of thing. Don't wear a lot of jewelry. Just basic tips to keep yourself safe. Um, when you're in a group. As far as traveling with, like on a cruise, I have done them with just the two of us, but I've also gone with a group of visually impaired people. And I enjoy both ways. The cruise lines are very accommodating when it comes to setting up a relief area for your dog. Um, they will, if you let them know ahead of time, they will even print out braille menus for you, which is nice. And all the staff, all the crew are very accommodating once they find out that you're blind or visually impaired. They're very, very accommodating about, you know, when you get to the dining room table at night for dinner, they'll tell you, okay, your water's right above your fork, or they'll they're very good about explaining where things are on the plate or the table, that kind of thing. So that's very helpful. Um, but like I said, I have done groups and I've done individual cruises, and I really enjoy them. But
Excellent. That's really good, Melvin. Melvin, at the beginning of the show today, the recording was the connection was so bad. I think we lost a couple of your sentences. So at the beginning, we our viewers are going to be a little confused. You said
okay,
something about Michigan, and then you said something about the Caribbean, and then it got into
okay,
it again. So
okay.
just
Um,
if you
I
would only
live
say maybe one or two sentences to
sure.
encapsulate the beginning that we
Sure,
lost.
sure. I live in Southwest Michigan, and I've done 4 cruises, one to Alaska and two to the Southern Caribbean and one to the Western Caribbean. So that's where Michigan and the Caribbean came in was that. So
Well, that's excellent. Yeah, I've been to the Caribbean too. It's a really fascinating and diverse part of the world. I went to Saint Lucia to do
okay,
some volunteer work years ago. So I have been to England. I've been to France 3 times because my second language is French. I've been to Germany. I've been to Poland. I've been to Austria. I've been to Amsterdam. By the way, spoiler alert, Amsterdam is a wonderful city to travel to. Amsterdam and the Czech Republic, along with a couple
Oh,
other
very cool.
places along the way. Yeah. So I
Very cool.
think so I think our listeners would also like to learn more about, if you want to tell us more about how you got this job as a travel agent. I think you said it.
Sure.
So tell us more about working as a
Sure.
travel agent and what they do.
I started working as a travel agent last month, actually in February. I've actually received my travel agent certification back in 1999 from Youngstown State University in Ohio, in conjunction with Pan Am Travel, and worked a little bit in the industry before I lost my sight. And then after I lost my sight, I really didn't do anything. And then like I said, this past February, I just started working for a company called Cruise Brothers. They have an office in Rhode Island and one in Florida. And I work from home, find my own clients, and basically, I do all the reservations online. Most of them are fairly accessible. There are a couple that you kind of have to play, a couple of the sites that you kind of have to play around with to get them to speak correctly with voiceover, because I do use a Mac. But for the most part, they're pretty well accessible. Um, as a travel agent, I don't get paid unless you book with me. I only get paid by commission. And working with Cruise Brothers, whatever they make in commission from the cruise lines, the hotels, that kind of thing, I get 50% of that. So it's nice work. There are some perks to being a travel agent, reduced prices on some travel. Um, there's a lot of education that goes into it. I just finished up the Princess Academy for Princess Cruises and graduated as a Commodore in their Princess Academy, which entitles me to take extra courses. I get a little extra benefit when I cruise with Princess. And I have one more class to finish up before I become an Alaskan expert with Princess. And there's other ones of the suppliers that also offer extra training, such as National Geographic has G Adventures, and you can become a journey specialist through them. A lot of the vendors have different courses that you can take. But really, there's no special training that's needed to be a travel agent. You really don't have to have the travel agent certification. There's no state or federal requirement that travel agents be certified. So basically, anyone can be a travel agent. You just have to work for an agency. You can't just say that you are going to be a travel agent and suddenly you're a travel agent. You actually have to work for a travel agency. And once you reach a certain amount of commission, then you get what is called your CLIA number, which is Cruise Line International Association number. And then that entitles you to be able to open your own travel agency if you want. But you do have to work for a company usually at the beginning.
Right. Well, that's great. This sounds like that would be a really good job for for maybe a lot of blind people, who maybe want to work from home, are good on their Mac, or able to and have an interest in helping people. That sounds really interesting. Yeah.
Yes, it would be a good job for people that want to work from home. You do have to know a little bit about the travel industry, though. I mean, you just can't stay at home and never have traveled, because people will ask you questions about, well, what are the cruise ships like? What is this? What is this like? What is that like? And you kind of have to know a little bit, have a little bit of knowledge. Otherwise, clients aren't going to return.
Right. Right. And how are you interacting with most of these clients? Is it just simply, through email, through video, audio calls similar to this one, things like that? Yeah. How do you connect with your clients and customers usually?
Yeah, either phone or email. I have done phone. I've done email. I've done some messenger on Facebook. Um, but most mainly through phone or email is how I get most of my contacts for my clients.
Excellent. And back in 1999, why did you study to be a travel agent in the first place?
I had graduated in '97 from Youngstown State with a bachelor's in geography, and so I thought that travel agent would be a good tie-in to my bachelor's degree. And I've always, like I said, I've always been interested in travel. Ever since I can remember, even as a young child, my family would go on vacations and stuff, and I really enjoyed it. So I thought, what better way to travel than to work in the travel industry and tie the two together. So that's why I actually started and took the courses.
Good, good. And so what courses, what did you need to learn? What courses did you need to take to become the agent?
There were different courses. The first 4 weeks were all book work. We watched some videos, that kind of thing. There was learning airport codes, car rental codes, that sort of stuff. And then we actually went into Pan Am Travel and we learned the computer side of it. We learned how to use the global distribution systems, GDSs, to book cruises and flights, that sort of thing. We learned about travel insurance, what some of the different regulations were as far as cruise lines and airlines and that sort of thing. Like you have to be so old to rent a car, or you have to be so old before you can, purchase a cabin on a cruise ship, that sort of thing. You had to learn some of the regulations. So there was a lot to it, but it was fairly simple. I mean, it wasn't anything super complicated.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
So, I do a lot of traveling, and one of the organizations I travel with does require travel insurance.
mhm.
I've never understood that. Maybe you can tell me, and if not, you can tell our listeners. Can you tell us a little bit more about travel insurance? That always puzzles me. What is it, and really, what's the real purpose of it? Because I don't see much of a purpose of it, to
Well,
be quite
the
frank.
the real the real purpose for travel insurance is, and there's different levels of travel insurance that I really, since I since I'm not an insurance agent, I really can't give you the details of what each thing covers. But basically, travel insurance would cover if you have to cancel, um, and then you would get back at least part, if not all, of the money that you have paid towards your trip, so you don't lose the money that you've paid for your trip. There's different things that cover, like if there's a breakdown on the plane and you miss a connection, or if your vacation's interrupted for some reason and you have to come home, some of the policies will cover trip interruption, and they will cover the amount of days they'll pay you back for the amount of days that you've missed on your trip. So there's different things that each policy covers, but it's basically to protect your investment if anything would happen. Now with like the corona pandemic,
Yeah.
not all insurance companies will cover that because it is a pandemic, and in that fine print, and a lot of them, there's certain things that they won't cover, and usually an epidemic or a pandemic is one of those things that it doesn't cover. So there are
And
instances
that's
where it won't
really
cover.
really in that's really excellent, outstanding. Our viewers are really going to. This is the type of information that blind people really want to learn more about and really have a hard time accessing.
Mhm.
So thank you, Melvin. You know, I'll tell you an interesting thing. You probably know the reasoning behind this already. There was a in my community or something, some one of my friends on Facebook, or not even a friend, but I saw a post somewhere along the way. I saw a post about someone was living in one of the southern states, and their home was destroyed by a hurricane. And the insurance company, and they called their insurance company and said, "Oh, can you help us with, with the damage?" And they said, the insurance company said no. Now, listeners, you probably don't know why. Listeners, Melvin, do you know why the insurance company said no? We will not cover for hurricane damage.
Well, there's a couple possibilities. One is it was an act of God,
That was
and
exactly it. Yes.
yeah, I was gonna say
And I
either
found
that or they didn't have the hurricane coverage in place. Yeah.
no, they had the coverage, but because it's very ironic, because it's an act, because an insurance
Mhm.
company is able to use those legal words. That was an
Mhm.
act of God. They are not required to cover acts of God. I I guess
Mhm.
I don't know. It's just interesting. I mean, then you could argue, and of course we never talk about religion on Aaron's show, but you
Mhm.
could argue,
Mhm.
well, if it's windy, well, isn't that an act of God? If it's rainy,
Right.
well,
Right.
isn't that?
Right.
So I think there's, legally speaking, I think there's more to it than the fact that they use the words, it's an act of God.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know what it, because you could argue, anyone, whether
Right.
you believe in God or not, anybody could say that anything is an act of God if
Right.
it was to only get them out of not paying someone else's money. If you
Mhm.
can get out
Mhm.
of giving someone money, you can say, well, it's an act of God. you know
Right.
so
Right.
I found that to be very ironic and very, very interesting. Yeah, but
Uh,
well, that's really interesting. So can you talk more in depth about your experiences that you've been having or had with your guide dog when you travel? By the way, listeners, I have a guide dog, or had a guide dog. She's still alive. She's very, very, very old now. She's 13 and she's retired. But I loved traveling with my guide dog. Where did you get your guide dog? Um,
uh,
mhm.
I got my dog at Pilot Dogs in Columbus, Ohio.
Wonderful.
All three of my dogs have been from Pilot. I'm waiting on another one. I just retired my last dog the week before Thanksgiving
Mm,
last year. Um,
yeah.
um, with the dog have been all definitely positive. I've not really had any negative incidents traveling with my dog. Um, of course, both my first two dogs were both standard poodle, and my last one was a black and tan Doberman. Um, so of course I get the questions. Well, I didn't know they used Dobermans, or I didn't know they used poodles. I get that a lot when I travel. But like I said, on the cruise lines, they're very accommodating as far as setting up the relief areas for the dogs. Um, it's a little more work when you travel on a cruise with the dog, because there's each island or each country that you go to has their own requirements for getting your dog off that ship and into the country. Some of them require tighter tests, some don't. Some require that your
Mm-hmm.
dog have the 1 year rabies vaccine. Others say, okay, the 3 years is good. Um, some require that you have certain parasite tests before your dog can get passed to come in. So each one has its own restrictions, and the best way to figure that out is to go to the USDA website, and they have a listing of all the countries and what paperwork is required um, for your dogs to be able to get off the ships. Um, I have had a couple of times that I have left my dog on the ship just because the paperwork was so extensive, and I've just left them in the room and gone off the ship and gone on my short excursion and then come back, and they've been fine with that. Um, but yeah, It is. It's a lot more freeing to travel with a guide dog than to travel without one, I think. I can navigate the ship a little better. I can navigate hotels and stuff like that a little better than if I'm even using a sighted guide. I can travel better with a dog. So, um, and last, not this past January, but last January of 2019, because I was with a guide dog on the cruise ship, the captain fell in love with her, and she actually got us a free. She actually got us a free tour of the bridge. So we got to go up and see how they steer the ship and how they navigate and all that kind of stuff. Normally that's like $150, $200 tour, and we got to go for free. So all because I had the dog with me.
Well, that helps.
Yeah.
There are definite interesting experiences can happen along the way like that. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember taking my guide dog. My dog is from Guiding Eyes for the Blind,
Okay.
Yorktown Heights, New York. And I remember taking her all over the world. And, there were a couple countries where it was incredibly difficult to get her into the country. The Caribbean country that I went to was incredibly difficult. And in general, guys, listeners, in general, islands are just very, very, very sensitive about pets and animals in general. Because they're paranoid of things having any type of disease which I don't fully understand that myself, because if an animal has rabies, why would a person be bringing their disease? I don't know. Why would the person? Do you understand my question, Melvin? Why would
I do.
Maybe you can understand. Maybe you can explain it to the listener better. But why? I'm just wondering why would somebody with let's say they have a dog that has an infection. Why would you go to someone else's country and then start walking around another country with an infected animal? That's what I would want to know.
It could be that sometimes it's an infection that you don't know your dog has.
Sure, possible.
And isn't picked up, and it isn't picked up unless it's taken to a vet. So that's a possibility. It could be an internal parasite that you don't know that it has, that particular island does not have. And then when your dog is there, that parasite is released, when they relieve themselves, and then all of a sudden their animals are starting to pick it up. So there are reasons for their restrictions. And there are some of the islands that are, they're completely rabies free. They have no incidence of rabies at all. So they want to keep it that way. So they want to make sure that the dogs and pets and the animals and stuff that are coming onto the island are vaccinated against rabies. So
yeah. You're right. That's what it is. I just think, yes, and at the same time, I also think that we as blind people should. I know you are always responsible. I'm making a generalization. I think we as the blind community should be responsible for our guide dog, and we should have a pretty good idea that they're healthy enough to do traveling. I just think in this day and age with the technology and the different tests that can be done and the different ways of record keeping, I think that there's got to be a way to create a system where when a guide dog team approaches a country or location, you just, you scan your passport, Melvin. Oh, okay, says the customs officer. Let me just scan your dog's Avid microchip. Oh, okay, that dog's good. They're on our database as healthy. To the world, I'm saying this to the world. Do not tell me in the comments that there is not a way to set up a database that has records of all the healthy animals. There is. I'm sure there is. So that, I guess I would want to learn more about that. I guess why there are not more databases geared towards that. What do you think about that idea?
I think it would be a good idea if something like that were created. It would make it easier to travel with a guide dog if there were something like that. it would make it easier to take your dog on cruises or even to fly to another country. I think it would make it so much easier.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even mind paying a little extra to have something like that done. You know what I mean? I wouldn't mind that at all.
No. As a, even though my dog's retired now, I certainly understand the issues that guide dog handlers have. And I completely understand why that would be a really good idea. I just think it should be in our country. I think it should be something that our Department of Agriculture should have some sort of a division or something like that, where they develop a platform for that type of thing. And then that platform is then shared with all the other ministries of agriculture around the world. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be a way to solve that. That is a problem that we should solve. But then again, in today's troubling times with coronavirus, you would say, well, we've been basically living in modern times for 2,000 years. You think we'd be able to figure out viruses by now. So,
Mm-hmm.
these problems, we still have problems as people. So
Right.
I
Right.
find that to be really, really interesting. Another thing, you mentioned earlier that you have traveled with some organizations with other blind people.
Yes.
Who have you traveled with?
There's a gentleman out of Illinois. His name is Dave Kronk, and he does cruises like usually twice a year for blind and visually impaired folks. And he's gone different places. He's going to Alaska. He's done the Mexican Riviera. He's doing the one that I'm going on next year to Panama. He's done the Southern Caribbean. He's done the Mediterranean. Last year, he just did a land tour of Ireland.
Mm.
So there's usually about 30 some people that go with him on most of his cruises.
Now,
Um,
this sounds like a person that I would be in. I may want to learn more about this person. So are they blind themselves?
no, he is actually sighted.
Oh, great.
Um, yes. And it's my understanding that he is at, or used to be, I don't know if he still goes to the ACB conventions or not, but he used to be at ACB conventions a lot.
Okay.
And he kind of, in cooperation with the ACB, said, okay, I'll do so many cruises a year for blind and visually impaired folks. So that's how he got his start, going the cruises for us. But no, he is sighted, and he does
Mm.
have sighted assistants that go with him. So anyone who needs sighted assistance, he does have sighted people to help if they need it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's really, really outstanding. And does he do any work with sailing cruises, as in a ship with modern sails, not just a motor ship?
Not that I know of. Not that I know
That
of.
is
No.
that is fine. That's still really good. And what can you tell me about his excursions that he arranges or that he plans?
Um, Basically, he leaves it up to each individual to pick their own short excursions when they're on cruises.
Hmm.
Um, and you just pick the short excursions you want, and then he makes sure that he has, if you need the help, he makes sure that there's someone to go with you. But he lets it pretty much up to you to arrange your own short excursions through the cruise line. Um, he does send out recommendations for each port that he thinks are the best of the short excursions. So, for example, there may be a walking tour that he may
Hmm.
do. We did a walking tour of Martinique. It was a 2 hour walking tour of
Ah.
Martinique, and that one was really good. So that was one of his suggestions that we do, and that's one that we picked. Um, but for the most part, you pick your own, and then, like I said, he makes sure that you have the help if you need it.
Hmm. Well, that's really good. Really, really, really excellent. Yeah. Yeah, I've traveled with an organization called Travelize. I'm sure you've
Oh
heard of
yes,
them.
yes, I've heard of them. Yes,
Yeah. Have you ever considered a holiday with Travelize?
I have. I've thought about it. I've never really. I've done some looking in or gone through with it though, but I have looked into them. No.
Well, I will tell you that it is certainly 100% worth it. Um,
Oh,
yeah. Hmm.
very cool.
Yeah. I've been
Yeah.
to, I actually went to Swaziland with them.
Oh,
I've
nice.
been to, hmm
Nice.
yeah, I've been to Swaziland with them, Amsterdam. My brother and I just completed a couple months ago, we just did a holiday cruise with Travelize down the River Rhine in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a really interesting experience. Um, of course, one of the days we went to Strasbourg, and I speak French, so that was really good for
Mm-hmm.
me. That was really nice. And Strasbourg was definitely the most exciting, was the highlight for me of it. But the German villages we went to were very, very interesting and very quaint and very beautiful little places. Hmm.
Cool. Very
Yes.
cool. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
although I would certainly, it sounds like I'm sure you have a lot of great trips planned, and I hope that you will at some point maybe do a short holiday with Travelize to check them out. It's definitely legit and definitely worth it.
Oh, cool.
The fun is though you do have to make your way to Heathrow though to get onto most of their
Oh, yeah.
trips.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's a British, it is a company that is geared towards British people, so it's a company that
Right.
really only leaves from Heathrow, and
Mm-hmm.
a couple other airports around the UK, but it's heavily, most of the people are British.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I've looked into them. I've not gone really any further than just doing some basic investigations of them and looking into some of the things that they've offered, and they do sound very interesting. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean basically there's a trip for everyone there. I mean, if basically most of it is either it's some exotic place or it's like a big city place. Those are basically the
Hmm.
two the two
Hmm.
two things. But I might want to learn a lot more about that guy you mentioned, Dave, that guy you mentioned,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
I'm someone who loves traveling by ship. I'm fascinated by the way that we can perceive the world through traveling to places simply on the water. It's a completely different way of traveling. So I would
It
love
is.
more information about his organization. If
Okay.
so, this guy though that you mentioned a minute ago though is he a travel agent? I mean, how did he kind of
He is.
establish
He is.
himself?
He is a travel. He is a travel agent. Yes. Um, he works for a company called Travel One.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Okay. So
yeah. Yeah.
not that I was ever doubting it, but you're saying this guy is already like his job is a travel agent, and over the years
Correct.
he has
Yes.
cultivated, I guess, a clientele of blind people, and he got good at
Yes.
organizing that type of thing. Yeah, I I
Correct.
would
Yes.
I would really appreciate more information about him as someone who's a
Sure.
world traveler. You have to travel with a lot of companies over your life, so I would, yeah. Please send me more info on that.
I will. I will.
And that's really, I've never been to Alaska too. Alaska seems
Oh,
incredibly beautiful, especially in the
it
summer,
is.
but really anytime. Hmm.
Alaska is phenomenal. When we sailed, we did 7 days uh, inside passage round trip out of Seattle.
Mm.
Um, our ports of call were Ketchikan, Juneau, Skagway, and Victoria, British Columbia.
Oh, cool.
And they're short excursions, of course, in each place you can do. Um, and My favorite one though was in Ketchikan. We went to the Saxman Native Village in Totem Bight State Park, um, and we got to see Native Alaskans dancing and singing. And then we left there and walked out back to a park that had a bunch of totem poles in it.
Mm.
And we were told the meaning of the totem poles and what the different figures meant. And then we got to walk across and see them actually carving one of the totem poles. And we learned how the paints were made back originally, and what each color meant, and that sort of thing. So it was very, very interesting. I really enjoyed that short excursion a lot.
And those are the excursions that I love, where you go into a small community, a very nondescript small place with something really unusual that you say to yourself, I wasn't really interested in that before I came, or I wasn't really knowledgeable
Mm-hmm.
about it before I was there. But now that I'm here, I'm really glad that you showed me that, I would say, because
Yeah.
that sounds
Yeah.
like a really cool experience to learn from the local people. And oftentimes it's kind of true, or it seems to be true, that the local communities in these tourist locations are very receptive to tourists as a
Yes.
whole. And I've noticed that they are almost always very understanding of blind people too. They seem very
Mm-hmm.
willing to accommodate, and they seem very used to that. Probably because the truth is they probably are used to it. But I think that when you live in an unusual place, I think you have a lot of pride as a person. I think that helps you. I think that makes you feel, you're a stronger person because of your background, and they have pride in that. So I noticed that
Right.
in Germany. The German people are very proud of their culture today, and the small intricate communities that many of them live in, these small towns,
Right.
where you would never go if you weren't on a cruise ship, little
Mm-hmm.
villages where
Mm-hmm.
really no one speaks English very well. Well, I know, I take that back. They probably do speak English and some French maybe, but that one in particular sounds good. But really, any unusual place like that illustrates culture is always going to be good. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And does this Dave guy have like packages where he like arranges the flight, or do you arrange your own transportation?
He can do that for you if you want.
Hmm.
Yeah. He leaves that up to you if you want to arrange your own flight, or he can do that for you, whichever. And he usually does have a hotel if you fly in the day before. So yeah.
Right, right. Well, I see. Well, that's really, really nice. And so when you are not working as a travel agent, what are some of your, hobbies and other activities you really enjoy?
I love to read.
Me too.
I listen to books like crazy. Mysteries, historical fictions, autobiographies,
Mm-hmm.
all that kind of stuff. I do yoga several days a
Ah.
week, and I like to just set around outside when it's nice and warm. It's a little too cold to do that now here in Michigan, but in the summer I like to be outside. Um, I like to walk a lot. I do like to walk a lot. So those are some of my bake and cook. I love to bake and cook. I'm a big baker.
Mm.
Um,
Oh, that's good. That's good. And
yeah.
what is your favorite meal to prepare? Or your favorite thing to bake?
Favorite thing to bake? Hmm. I would have to say it's a cheesecake that I make. Um,
Love cheesecake.
yeah, it's got white chocolate in it, so that makes it even better. Um, it's a very good cheesecake.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. I
yeah,
agree. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, cheesecake goes great with so many things.
it does.
Um,
Yes.
even you'd be surprised. Even it goes really good with some wines and liqueurs too. If you
Yes.
have like a
Yes.
dessert wine and cheesecake, I mean, 99% of the time I'm coffee and cheesecake, but once a year, especially in the summer, a glass of like dessert wine and cheesecake, that is like really
Mhm.
good, man.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
it does go together though, because it's the alcohol and then the sugar and then the salt and
Right.
then the
Right.
and then the extra chemicals that aren't really good for us, and then you put it all together and then it's delicious.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
What was the most in your travels? What was the most unusual food that you encountered while traveling?
Most unusual food. Hmm. Huh. Um, Kimchi. I think would be the
Love
most
kimchi.
unusual
Love it.
food that I've had. That was on one of the ships. I actually had they were vegetable rolls and they were served with
Mm-hmm.
wasabi and kimchi.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was. I think that's the most unusual. I have had fried escargot. That's a little different. Usually you get it in butter. Um,
Oh, come on, man! You can't just fry it. I'm used to it. Like French people, yeah, you put it in butter and
well,
garlic, garlic sauce. Yeah.
this this fried escargot was really kind of cool. It was chopped up and then it was mixed with garlic butter and they were rolled in little balls and then they were breaded and deep fried. So when you bit into them, that shell of that breading broke open in the butter, the garlic butter. Oh, yeah, they were so good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's that sounds like some serious comfort food there. That sounds really,
It
really,
was.
really.
It was very, very good. That was at the Bistro Sur La Mer on the Sky Princess this past January. Um,
I see.
and
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, they gave great food when I was on the cruise with my brother. They had all sorts of unusual, really good fish,
Oh
gnocchi,
yeah.
which is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Venison, my brother had that. Um, really good beers, really good rosé, really good wine, all sorts of things. Yeah,
Yes.
and then
Um,
some desserts too. But you know what I always thought that whole time is that the main courses were so delicious, and then I would eat the dessert, and the dessert would be too sweet. So it's like if you have a
mhm.
really good meal, you don't really need the dessert.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. And anyone who does not gain weight on a cruise isn't doing something right. um, because there is just so much food and it is so good. Oh, it is so good. Um, even the food at the buffet is
Mm.
excellent. And you think of buffet food as kind of being, the food at the buffet is so good.
Hmm. I agree. Yeah, they
Um,
put forth a lot of effort on cruise ships
yes,
for food. Yeah. Hmm.
yes.
Def,
But
without
yeah,
doubt.
I've had some very good fish stews, seafood stews. I've had chowders. I had reindeer chili one time.
Mm.
That was very good. Um, yeah, so I've had quite a bit of very good food.
Hmm.
Black and blue um,
Black and blue what?
onion soup. It was
Oh, onion
French
soup
onion
is
soup
delicious.
with blue cheese on the top instead of the
Delicious.
regular Swiss.
Yeah,
Yes.
you know what they get? You know what they gave one of the soups on the cruise was a celery stew. Yeah, that's
Oh yeah.
really good. Hmm.
Yes. Yes.
That is, it's the type of thing where if I had it all the time, I would get sick of it. But once a year, that nice sharp pinch,
Mhm.
that is like
Mhm.
really, really delicious. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yep. Yeah, the food, like you said, the desserts can be a little sweet, so I usually opt for the sugar-free dessert, which is just as good as any of the regular ones. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
One of my friends came over a couple nights ago, and the friend is diabetic, so I had to buy like what's the word, like diabetic safe diabetic a diabetic dessert.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I tried it. It was like a cookie. I tried it. I said, wow, that tastes a lot better without all the sugars. It tasted more
Yes.
natural. So I
Yes.
agree. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. And Princess has what they call, well, they've paired with a chocolatier by the last name of Love, and he does a lot of the specialty chocolate desserts for them. And some of them are just, oh, they are an overload of chocolate, but they are
Hmm.
so good.
Hmm.
um, and the nice thing is you can order more than one too. If you want, if you look at the dessert menu and you see two of them you want, order both of them.
Well, good. On my cruise line that my brother and I were on with Travelize a couple months ago, it wasn't like that. The manager, she went around and she read us the menus, and then we picked out. We had to like hand pick our meals, and we had to hand
Mm-hmm.
pick the like the different choices, and then the wait staff had a list, and they just memorized who ordered what. So you really, I mean, you picked,
Mm-hmm.
but you couldn't like get more.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
more would have been too difficult.
Yeah, I know.
So.
I know
Hmm.
some of the cruise lines they limit you to like one entree or one dessert. Others don't. Um, so it just depends on the cruise line as to whether you can do that or not.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they're very concerned with safety these days on cruises. I noticed the
Yes.
drinks, the drinks were very weak. They didn't put very much alcohol. Maybe
Right.
maybe even a couple of times, maybe they didn't put any. Maybe they just pretended to put alcohol in some of the drinks. I think they're very paranoid. I mean, I'm responsible, and I'm 28 years old,
Right. Right.
but. Uh, a lot. There are many people who are going on cruises because they are not responsible. So cruise lines have
Mm-hmm.
figured out, well, we can't have people getting hurt on the ship, so they
Right.
give
Right.
less alcohol, or sometimes it seemed like they didn't put much alcohol in there at all. Hmm.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And that's like if you buy a drink package, a lot of times they'll limit you to the number of drinks that you can have in a day.
that's interesting. Yeah, there
Um,
was no limit
yeah.
on the ship I was on. You could buy as many things as you want, and then you just ring up the bill at the end on your room.
Right.
It just
Right.
goes to your room
Yeah.
bill at the end.
Right.
But yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Each company has their own
They do.
has their has their own
They do.
rules about what they want and don't want. Yeah.
Right. And that's one of the benefits of using a travel agent is a
Right.
travel agent knows each cruise line and what they will and will not allow, and that travel agent can also um, give you shipboard credit, which you can use on board the ship for anything you want. It comes out of our commission, but we give it to you as a gift for booking with us.
Right.
Um, and then, like I said, you can use that for anything you want. You can use it for drinks. You can use it for shore excursions, for a specialty diner, uh, in the special dining room, whatever you want. So it's, it does, there is some benefit to booking with a travel agent.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's all really really interesting. You so it seems like you do a lot of activities with ACB. I think a lot of our listeners are not terribly familiar with ACB. Can you tell us a little bit more about that if you would like?
Actually, I don't. I'm not affiliated with ACB or NFB or any of them.
That is fine.
Um, yeah, and like I said, Dave, the guy who does the cruises, that's how he originally got started, and I don't know if he's still affiliated with them or not. But I know originally that's how he got his start, doing cruises
Hmm.
for the visually impaired. But other than that, I really don't. I really don't do anything with them at all.
Okay. Well, good. Well, to be honest, me neither. But that is fine. I would then wonder, why did the Dave guy get involved with ACB if he's sighted? But who knows?
Yeah, yeah. I'm
That's
not sure.
that is fine, and that's very very interesting. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
I think a lot of the organizations are going to be canceling their conferences this year anyway. So I
I
I,
think
I
so
don't.
too.
I don't think this is going to be a particularly big year for people traveling. I think there's going to be a decrease in things in travel this year
Yeah, yeah.
for sure.
I think by the end of summer we'll see a pickup again in the travel. Um, travel will pick up again. I'm sure by the end of summer, beginning of fall, right in there. I think travel will start to pick back up, and um, we'll see an increase again.
Well, good.
Um, yeah, yeah. It will take it a while to get back to the point where it was here recently, but we'll get back. We'll definitely get back to where we were.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Well, that's all really good.
Yes.
So I've asked you a
If
lot of questions. Yes, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if anyone wants to look up my Facebook, I am on Facebook. If you
Go ahead.
search Melvin Reynolds
Give
affiliate
yourself a
agent,
plug. Yeah.
yeah, if you look up Melvin Reynolds affiliate travel agent, you'll find my travel agent. You'll find my business page.
I
And
tell you
my
what, Melvin. Since you want to give yourself plugs, that's totally fine. Thank you. I support that.
yeah.
I tell you what. Later, if you can, if you want, you may send me your website, your
Oh,
personal
okay.
website and your links, and then what I can do
Okay.
is I can post them up under my show's page when I post this, and then
Okay.
everybody
Great.
can just go click on your link. So
Okay. That sounds
so
good.
I
That sounds good.
so I think that was a great episode today. I'm really impressed. I'm really glad that you came in. I think our listeners are going to want to have a lot more information, and thank you for that. So
Yes.
that is about all I have to say today. I think. Is there anything else you want to tell our listeners?
Not that I can think of. Not right offhand. Just hang in there. Travel will pick back up. And if you're thinking of traveling, now is actually a good time to book. There are some very good prices out there right now, even for next year. So, now's a good time to book
Well,
if you're thinking of traveling.
Well, I agree, everybody. So you at home, don't forget to think about doing some traveling, and just remember, guys, don't forget to click on Melvin's link. Let's see if we can help him out and travel the world. I think that would be a really, really, really good idea. All right, here's my outro. How I end things. You've been listening to Aaron Show, the podcast for blind people, where we talk about issues, especially traveling the world in the blindness community. As I said on yesterday's show. Stay safe, everybody. We're going to get through this coronavirus. Don't worry. Stay safe. Wash your hands and come back next time. Have a good day today and a great day tomorrow. Thank you so much.